Қайырлы күн, құрметті қонақтар,
Good morning, dear ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, dear guests. Welcome to the second day of Astana Finance Days.
Gentlemen, good morning and welcome to the plenary session of the second day of Astana Finance Days 2025. And I would like to first start from extending our sincere thanks to our esteemed partners, Freedom Broker, Kazminerals, and ITS, for their continued support and valuable contribution to the development of the forum. So today our plenary session is titled Power of Portfolio Investments, Strengthening Financial Markets in Central Asia. And you know, as a country that is rapidly developing, we are in need of capital and investments in our economy. And of course, everyone talks about the foreign direct investments, about making the country attractive. At Astana International Financial Center, we are also one of the mandates by our constitutional statute in development of the securities market, or so-called capital market, and making sure that it's connected to the global market. So we really focused on developing this asset management industry, our public markets, as well as our private markets, to make sure that the portfolio investors of foreign portfolio investments are present here. So we started kind of already discussion about this yesterday with on our infrastructure panel session, and how private equity focused on infrastructure can contribute to this. But today we are really focused on the portfolio investment and development of the market. So we have distinguished panel of speakers, both policymakers and then the representatives of international institutions who are active in emerging markets to discuss this topic. I would like to, of course, start from introducing this brilliant panel. Many of the people probably do not need introduction, but still, please welcome Timur Suleymanov, Governor of the National Bank of the Republic of Kazakhstan. Mr. Kanat Sharlapayev, Assistant to the President of the Republic of Kazakhstan for Economic Affairs. Mr. Renat Yusuf, Partner, Goldman Sachs. Mr. Hani, Kablawi, Senior Executive Vice President and Head of International Business, Bank of New York. And Mr. Timur Turlov, CEO of Freedom Holding Corporation. And of course, I would like to start from the Governor of the National Bank of the Republic of Kazakhstan, because the monetary policy and of course the policy regarding the exchange rate of tenge is very important for the investors who are interested and who do come to Kazakhstan. So I would ask the governor to give a little bit of an overview of the goals of the central bank and the policies that is implementing today. Timur Much, please.
Well, thank you very much, Governor Bekturov, and then I congratulate you and then the wonderful team of the AIFC on holding this event that has become something much more than just about Kazakhstan, Kazakhstan's financial market. I think it is a great platform for the regional gathering of minds and ideas, and hopefully something more tangible in ways of business contacts and business deals. So with respect to the question, well, of course, as a macro regulator, the national bank's role, just like any other central bank's role, is in our country it's twofold. First and foremost, it's price stability, and we also have co-mandate on non-financial stability. The first one is inflation. The second one is, of course, financial markets. And so basically, together with the government, we are trying to make the macroeconomic fundamentals of our country stable and and attractive from the investment standpoint. And of course, it's a never challenging battle, because sometimes you can grow too fast, sometimes you can grow under your potential, and therefore finding the right balance, finding the right tools, and the right sectors to develop is always a work of science and sometimes art. So, but I do believe that together with the government, I think the government will be, and I think Mr. Sharlapayev will be talking about macroeconomic fundamentals in general. We have a pretty strong growth. We have a pretty healthy influx of investment into fixed capital, And so our real sector fundamentals are pretty sound. So I guess it's about making it long-term, making it very sustainable and very, I would say, also inclusive. So on our part, of course, is tackling inflation and having a more, well, we don't regulate the exchange rate, as you know, it's a free float. But therefore, in any case, trying to make it as much stable as possible, of course, it's our job. I think for the purpose of this panel, I won't be speaking too much about inflation. Inflation is on the rise due to many factors, both external and domestic. And I think, but the key driver, one of the key drivers, was a huge fiscal impulse that we've been putting into the economy for the couple of years. So therefore, there were a lot of money in the economy, and of course, the rate of producing goods stream was not at the same speed. So therefore, we will be seeing fiscal consolidation starting January 1st next year. And I think that in itself, apart from being a good fiscal policy, will be a huge factor that will help us to battle the inflation. Well, on our part, I think what we can do, of course, is, as you know, we also manage, apart from being a classical central bank, we manage our state's reserves. So we manage the national fund, the gold reserves of the central bank, and the pension fund, unified pension fund. So what we started to do, and some other smaller funds, we started to do some of our daughter companies, for example, the insurance guarantee fund, which transferred part of its own assets into private management. So basically they were managing themselves because they have the capabilities, they have the expertise, but we decided that we need to develop the market. So we transferred about 500 million into the market. Hopefully next year we will evaluate the performance of the relevant fund managers, and next year we will increase the amount. I think we need to be a lot more, in order for the market for the portfolio securities market to thrive, we need to be a lot more active. Because currently we have a lot of liquidity in the pension fund, which is being managed by the central bank. And as you know, we have a pretty strong team. And I'm not speaking about myself, I'm speaking about my colleagues who've been there for a long, long time, well-trained, have huge expertise, and very results-oriented. But in any case, it's a single team of managers, and it does not represent the market. So therefore, we need to transfer as much of the pension fund's assets into the private management as possible. Of course, being sound, very prudent about it, having very good, sound, stringent financial oversight and regulation. But in any case, without that, I think the market for securities in Kazakhstan has limited chance to succeed. And again, now coming back to macroeconomic fundamentals, of course, Kazakhstan runs current account deficit, even with a huge trade deficit, given that we have a lot of repatriation of income coming from huge oil and gas. Our current account is in deficit, so whatever money comes into the country, from portfolio investors included, is really good for us as a central bank, because it will help us with the overall soundness of the financial system and the exchange rate. So I guess I won't take too much time because we have a wonderful panel. I will stop here and we'll be ready to discuss it further. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor Suleimanov. Just, if I may pick up on what you said about the local asset management industry, again, I fully agree, and I think you're doing a great job, given that you have the mandate to manage both three actually pools of money: the reserves, the pension fund, and the national fund, on creating the local asset management industry. We see that it's growing. We see that also in AIFC, that the new emerging asset managers getting licenses here. But do you think that if we can bring in here like big established global names that would also contribute to the developing the local market, would that is that something that the NBK is considering?
Yeah, sure. It's an excellent point. You know, everything is when it comes to your retirement money. Of course, it's very sensitive. And given, I wouldn't call it a trauma, but in any case, it was some sort of a shock in 2013 when people found out that at that time the managers were misusing the funds, and there were a lot of other types of violations. Of course, a lot of people lost faith in private management of pension money, and that's really difficult to overcome in any society, and especially in our society, which went through part of it, especially the one that is closer to pension, went through perestroika and other shocks of the 90s. So it's very difficult to overcome that. So I guess having very huge brand names, very trusted names from the international arena can help overcome this obstacle. So I guess we have the money. I think the system is very sound. We have the supply side, the demand side, and we do have pretty strong internal managers. We need to say that. But if we have someone from outside, I think they also are destined to succeed. But I guess we need to do a lot of internal work first.
Yes.
And,
thank you. Thank you, Governor. Thank you. Now, if I may, Mr. Sharlapayev, turn to you, and Governor Suleimanov already kind of announced that you will probably speak about the macroeconomics. However, I would also want to ask you as an assistant to the President on Economic Affairs, and if one of our largest, probably biggest goal is to attract foreign investors, do you see that the portfolio investors could play in this big role, and what is the expectation from us as the center and as the regulators to facilitate that flow?
First of all, thank you, Governor Bekturov, and many esteemed guests here. I think it's a great pleasure to see such an attention to Kazakhstan and AIFC and the Finance Days in Astana. Look, I think the situation we can describe as it is now is so far so good. We're doing all right. Headline growth in the economy, 6.3%, right? So, I think what's important in this case, it's a broad-based growth. So it's not just oil and gas, right? It's manufacturing that's growing 6%. It's construction that's growing nearly 18%, right? It's the agriculture that's doing quite well. I think the trade is doing quite well. And I think fundamentally, there's few things that are happening that ensuring overall fundamental macroeconomic stability, right? Which is probably one of the factors that does influence investors' decision about Kazakhstan. And for us, is of course, it comes with prudent monetary policy that, of course, our national bank, thanks to the efforts of Governor Suleimanov, is showing. But also from the fiscal standpoint, I think a few things happened that I wanted to attract this audience's attention to. First of all, it's the new tax code that's coming into force in 2026. I think fundamentally this is a more fiscally prudent document. Second thing that happened is adoption of a new budget code, which basically regulate the relationship between the republican budget with the regional budgets, and overall, again, introduces a lot more fiscal discipline elements, further contributing to the fiscal stability of the country. Addition to that, I think what we continuously talk about is that our efforts to liberalize the economy started paying off, and it's showing in its diversification. So if you think about it, right, so if you look at this economy 5 years ago, the biggest contributing factor to the headline growth was, of course, oil and gas, etc. Right now, on a contribution to the GDP basis, our manufacturing sectors, our metallurgy sectors, right, they become equivalent of our oil and gas sector in terms of the GDP contribution. I think that trend's continuing, and we're seeing some more solid results in that space because of the our efforts to basically introduce more players, more market-driven environment in the economy. With regards to the portfolio investment, I think the key fundamental thing that, in my opinion, and I won't take more of audience's times, and I want other people in the panel also to speak, but fundamentally what's happening, I think, is very interesting. What National Bank is trying to do now is to introduce independent asset managers that create liquidity, that create different opinion on different assets in the market, right? And markets always work on a supply and demand side, right? I think Kazakhstan, from the standpoint of good investable assets, is actually doing quite well. It's now creating the market environment that is dynamic, that produces independence of opinion on the value of those assets, right? And therefore, that introduction of independent asset management into the system, I think, is very healthy for the further development of the financial markets. And I think there's a very famous adage that if you want foreign investors to come, you need to have an active internal market, right? And I think that this is something that we want to introduce, and of course, it will be encouraged from our side. I think that's all from my side. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, Mr. Sharlapayev. Well, as I said, I fully agree that we need our own vibrant asset management industry here. So on the demand side, we have local liquidity pools so that the foreign portfolio managers coming in can leverage off. And I'm happy that the assistant to the president on economic matters also we agree on that at some point. So we'll come back to that point. But now I'd like to give the floor to our good friend and person who's been covering our market for a long time, Riyad. The floor is yours, from the Goldman Sachs, well-known, of course, brand globally in investment industry. So from Global Bank's point of view, I mean, just general maybe overview on the appetite for Central Asia and Kazakhstan, but also from portfolio construction point of view, right? We have so many things in past 2-3 years happening that have affected the portfolios of global investors, right, with the geopolitics and etc. I think that the Central Asia or our region, and especially Kazakhstan, could fill some of those gaps and has a very good opportunity. You may agree or may not agree, so if you can elaborate on this, please, the floor is yours.
Can I start by complaint, because you didn't use the word friend in your introduction, so I'd like to,
I
looked at this room, I just have so many friends in this audience, but also up here. So I would like to start by saying that I think, Goldman was part of the founding shareholder of AIX, and we really shared in the vision of what you were trying to do here. And it's just really nice to be here among friends and seeing the development that the AIFC and the AIX has done. So first of all, let me just start by congratulations.
Thank you.
Look, I just want to say that Kazakhstan doesn't need selling. I mean, you are so blessed with so many things. You have a lot of really amazing things underground. You have a lot of oil, you have a lot of minerals. You've been developing that in a very smart way for many decades. And most people don't have that. You probably had at some point some issues around policy, so sometimes you need to have the right frameworks in place for international investors when they look to the country. When they come and see 22% debt to GDP ratio, they come and say, this is a very solid balance sheet. Like, you have a lot of income, you have a lot of assets, you're not silly about how you're raising debt. When you look at the G7 countries, these guys are at 100% plus in many of the instances. So at 22%, you have a very attractive balance sheet. You have a 6.3% growth rate, if I'm not mistaken. I think the numbers just came out earlier this week. How many countries in the world have a 5% plus for growth rate? Not too many. So it doesn't need selling. So when people looked at Kazakhstan from outside, when we look at it from outside, what we ask is, do we believe in the system, right? So as we looked at over the time, now let's go to the system. As many of the system policymakers are on this panel, so forgive me for giving some kudos, but it starts from the central bank. You have to have a orthodox policymaking at the central bank where people know, and partially predictable policymaking of fighting inflation, financial stability, and banking system stability. And what we can see from outside is that the way the policymaking has happened in terms of particularly rate setting and the predictability of how we expect the central bank to react provides a tremendous amount of confidence, and I cannot stress how important that is. We've seen some of your neighbors, which are very large economies, which ran unorthodox financial policies and rate-setting policies, and they had pretty disastrous impact in terms of foreign investor appetite. So I think that's very key to notice. The second one is the banking system. The banking system here has a colorful past. We were also shareholders in some of the banks here, so we understand that very, very well. But today, the AQR policy that is under the direction of the central bank and the financial authorities has been incredible. And when I interact with the banks on this trip, I haven't been here a couple of years, which is unusual for me. It's very different today than it was a couple of years ago. So I think that's really nice to see. So you've got stuff on the ground, very good balance sheet, very good policy. Now everyone's like, okay, let's invest into Kazakhstan. Now here comes the problem, which is buy what? Okay, so you ultimately need to buy some.
Нужно же что-то.
What I would say is that you need some widgets, either financial widgets or real assets that people will actually need to put their money into. And now let's analyze that. So maybe spend a couple minutes on that. The most important and easy to invest cash coming from outside, the first thing people look at is the government bond curve. And Kazakhstan has a dollar government bond curve, dollar or foreign currency government bond curve, and a domestic bond curve. So what you want is money and interest in the domestic, the tenge government bond curve. There's a few things that would vastly improve the appetite at 16.5% yield curve. This is a very attractive asset. We understood the path of the inflation. FX is at 540. Like this thing is at a 400. People will buy Kazakh government bonds at 12%. It doesn't need 16.5. So what's the challenge is you need to finish the work that we're doing on the primary dealership. So I know there's work underway to set up the primary dealership in a robust way. I think that's very important to finish. Liquidity provider, who provides the liquidity is critical. Right now, there's just not enough liquidity in the system to be able to, sorry?
No, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah. Not enough liquidity providers on the tenge government curve. Second is the curve itself. There's just too many points on the curve. Like if you had benchmark bonds on the curve, where you have not maybe 10 bonds or 20 bonds, you had 3 bonds. What would happen is that those bonds would be included in the JP Morgan index, and when its index inclusion drives investor appetite into those specific liquidity points. So there's a few things that I think, and I know that they're underway, so I think, again, congratulations to the authorities for noticing that and working on this, but I think this would be transformational. And you don't need to attract demand at 16.5. You can 12%. Mexican government bonds are at 7%, and there's lots of people piled into it. And Kazakhstan is a much richer country than that. So that's the first one. The second point I want to harbor on, which was I want to talk about the asset manager, but I think we really spoke a lot about that. The asset management system, you really need a domestic asset management system to have capital markets. So that I think is kind of quite critical, and as you all heard, that's well underway. The third one really came in the last 1 year. I wouldn't have said this a year ago if I sat here, but today I will say this, which is energy policy. Again, when you see to what does Kazakhstan has to offer from a competitive advantage perspective, the most important asset today in the world that is at a dearth is electricity. And this came up in the last 6 months. Why? Because the fight for data centers and the fight for compute in the war for AI has created an electricity shortage across the G7 world. Now, why is that interesting for Kazakhstan? In the past, you said, let's build industry, let's build a car plant, let's build meat factories. All of these require a lot of other things to happen. Like you need roads, trains, you need workers, training for people. Lots of different things needs to happen for that money to come in. So it's quite hard. For a data center to arrive in Kazakhstan, which will cost somewhere between 20 to 50 billion, so that's a big FDI number, so that will make the governor very happy, I'm sure. That only requires cheap energy. It doesn't require anything else, and the wire. Now, I think a lot of the wires already exist, so you almost don't need to build the wire. But if you had an energy policy which allows for effectively planting a data center here that will be serviced for the hyperscalers, I think that's an opportunity that Kazakhstan cannot miss. It really cannot. And you are energy-rich countries, so I would expect you to be able to come up with an energy policy, which I understand there is a 2030 energy policy. 2030 is too late. 2035 is too late. The time is now to be able to attract them. This doesn't take long to build these things, and I really think that you have a very unique proposition and ability to build that here. I'll pause there.
Thank you. Thank you, Riyad. I think that was a good point about the sovereign debt. Unfortunately, we don't have the representatives of the Ministry of Economy or Ministry of Finance here to comment on our debt policy. But if I may, maybe Governor Suleimanov or Mr. Sharlapayev can a little bit comment on this, because like for people it may sound, look, you're saying that we have a strong fiscal policy, right, that less than 25% debt to GDP ratio, so that's kind of the attractive point, but then you kind of alluding that we could borrow, right, but we also have a problem of servicing that debt, right, which is at the interest rate you mentioned is expensive. So you know, I mean, like there are two sides to this question, right? You want to offer more instruments or
not more, not more debt. Yeah. The same debt more thoughtfully. So whatever your debt stack is, it's just spread out across so many instruments. So when an investor looks at, say, let's buy into Kazakhstan, they open it, click a screen comes up as this big. And so the liquidity gets distributed across all those instruments. So what's end up happening today is that there is a synthetic, so people are starting to buy tenge assets in synthetic format, which is not dollar inflow into the country. So buying an NDF in tenge for, you know, there's probably $500 to $1 billion of investments that got into tenge assets, but that's not dollar that came to the reserves. That dollar stays offshore. So if you had a curve that was, let's say, concentrated across some benchmark assets, I don't think I'm saying anything new. I'm quite sure that the Ministry of Finance is quite on top of this, and it's coming. But I just wanted to highlight that this is something that's a very easy, quick fix to make this more, and you don't need it at 16.5, as I said. You can lower the rates.
Sorry. Yeah, I'll just make a couple of quick comments on this one. I think your point raised about primary dealership, I think is something that we need to continue working on. And I think that conversation is well underway, and hopefully that we'll come to the resolution on that subject. I think fundamentally that will help to organize the market slightly differently, right? So it's not about just the market infrastructure and stability, but also the way markets are organized is sometimes very helpful to attract inflows into the market. The second thing, which is what very acutely is being observed by our dear friend Renat, is that we're actually more successful at raising money abroad than we are domestically. So it is easier for us to go out there and persuade foreign investors if we issue a dollar or euro denominated bonds. The locally denominated bonds are less successful in terms of pricing, in terms of the way it attracts capital. And it's a very peculiar situation. Usually that shouldn't be happening. I think this is something that we, together with Ministry of Finance and the National Bank, will continue working on. But if you think about it, like our debt issuance very recently, we've been priced well above our credit rating. The latest placement in June, and the interest rate reflects that. And I think this is something that we need to continue to work on collectively. And with that, I'll probably ask Mr. Suleimanov to share a few thoughts.
Sure. I think I would agree that, again, macroeconomically, the levels of debt are low, but the service expenditure is really high. So it means that we've been doing a pretty average job with respect to debt management. To that end, of course, we have created more or less a debt management office between the Ministry of Finance and the National Bank, because both of us work closely with both external and internal investors, just like Mr. Sharlapayev has mentioned. We need to be targeting both audiences. I think that's really important. There are a lot of things related to foreign investors being able to easily come in, easily come out. It has to do with regulation, open capital account, but also with market infrastructure, clearing, and everything related to infrastructural things. But I think one of the important aspects is what they call, we call investor sentiment and inflation expectations. So basically, for example, when Russia is a country at war, and they had a base rate at 21%, but the 3-year government bonds were trading at 16% per annum. Well, our base rate is 16.5, and we're trading at 16.5 to 17%, our Ministry of Finance, for the same duration. So it means that looking into the future, investors are expecting premium, and that means they do not believe that inflation will be brought down to what we believe is a sustainable level, which is 5%. So I guess it's what do you call, an all-out, whole of the government, whole of the society, whole of market effort to say that inflation is high, but we will get it down to 5%. Therefore, the base rate, the market rates will go down, and therefore the premium that the market is expecting is really excessive. So basically, we'll be coming down to the 12% that Renat was talking about. But it takes a very joint effort from investor society and from the government and from the central banks. So we shouldn't be hearing, signals that inflation is here for forever. It's going to be high, because that means that the market will be expecting a lot more than it is entitled to, given the sound macroeconomics of our republic. So I guess it's a joint work between us, the government, investor society, but I'm really confident that we will get there, and that both internal and external demand will be there at the affordable and reasonable rates. Thank you.
Thank you for the comments. And I can see that Mr. Turlov has a lot to comment on both local demand side and interest rate. But before we go to the local markets view on this, if I may, I would like to invite to the discussion Mr. Kablawi, who represents Bank of New York Mellon, one of the largest, if not the largest, custodian bank globally that has access or help to get access to the international investors to over 120, maybe 140 different markets, because we're still developing infrastructure and accessibility of our markets. And of course, BNY see the flows of the investors and their interest on those over 100 different markets, right? So, Mr. Kablawi, if you can comment on, again, attractiveness of this part of the world to the international investors, and how the importance of the infrastructure and just any other points you think valuable to this discussion, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks very much, and congratulations again, Renat. It's amazing to see the progress since the last time I was here. And if I think about the core issues or things that have happened since the last time I was here, there's two things that really stand out. One is, and the governor commented on this, is talent. So we go around and meet with all market participants, regulators, market infrastructure players, and that's both in AIFC as well as onshore. And the profile of the talent, primarily Kazakh talent, but also talent from the region and abroad, is really significant, right? A significant uplift since the last time I was here. And the second is, all of that talent is really aligned in the narrative and the story and the goals and the vision and mission and strategies that everybody wants to achieve. So whether I'm speaking to people at the National Bank or at the CSDs, the stock exchanges, the regulators, right, it just really does feel like everybody is speaking in unison on what the goals are. Look, in those conversations, I can confidently say that there's been a lot of progress in the areas of trading, clearing, settlement, custody, across both onshore and within the AIFC. So any comments I would make on market infrastructure would be around the keep it going type comments. I would make these comments in other markets as well. You've got the new ISO formats. That's all about getting the data right. It's about getting the straight through processing right. Your visionary yesterday spoke about accelerating the cycle from clearing to settlement to custody, from the T plus whatever it used to be to T plus 2, Now we're going to T+1. Europe and the UK will follow on T+1 sometime by 2027. So, continuing on that journey, I think, is going to be important. Your digital asset rules and regulations here are also pushing in the right direction, your sandboxes. And I think that's going to be important. We, as a global custodian, are, on the one hand, working on continuing to push the market towards fully digital and as close to instantaneous settlement with no failures as possible, and at the same time working on the digital asset, in the digital asset world, to make settlement completely instantaneous and remove the noise and improve the data flows. And so they keep it going, I think, is really important here. The other thing I would comment on, and I agree with Riyad's commentary on the bond markets, I would say in equities, we're also a large depository receipt issuance enabler bank, right? There are some depository receipt issues that are out of this market. I would say, global investors, and many of them are, let's call it real money investors, are looking to invest in potentially base currencies. So when they do look to invest in base currencies, the convertibility and the availability, liquidity in FX markets is going to be very, very important, right? So that's one. And the second is sometimes their mandates, investors' mandates, are actually to invest in their base currencies, which is where products and capabilities like depository receipts do come in. So I'd say just continuing to broaden the availability of tools and investment products in order to tick as many boxes as possible over time is only going to be positive for the market here.
Thank you, Mr. Kablawi. You made a few good points. I want to come back afterwards, but finishing up on that debt is the digital and tokenization of this industry. I think this is a very good point, and we have very good progress in this area. So we'll come back, and also to equity. But just last few comments from the local market representative on the local debt market, why it's more expensive to borrow locally than outside, and in general, Mr. Churlov, your comments on this issue, and also if you can then talk about the local equity market.
Thank you. Frankly speaking, I think that Ministry of Finance, together with National Bank, already did a great job structuring our government bonds market. And our government bonds issuance now much more consolidated and structured than, I don't know, 5 years ago. And I hope that we actually already have strong market makers on this market. So, for example, Freedom Holding Corp, our subsidiaries here, can, I hope, provide liquidities for most of issuance of government bonds for hundreds of millions of dollars for each. And that never happened 10 years ago, 5 years ago. But now we think that market is quite consolidated. It's really very high yield. And we have enough market makers who can do these trades with, I don't know, local settlement, AIX settlement, KC settlement, Euroclear settlement, whatever you want. And that's happened just last 2 years. That's very recent development, but it's happened. I'm sure that if we will continue to develop local asset management and more competition in terms of pricing of these government bonds, I'm sure that that will also pay a lot to reduce actually borrowing rates for Ministry of Finance, because I really believe that we have a chance to achieve our inflation goals. And I'm really sure that our government bonds now traded and maybe a bit undervalued. And we can, and that's who will, I don't know, buy 7 years bonds at, I don't know, 17% yield, can make a lot of money if finally inflation will slow down, even not to the target, but closer to the target at the end of the day. That could be a huge premium at the end of the day. If I'm wrong, so that's with such, frankly, strong monetary position in terms of reserves and in terms of generally country forex reserves. We have a lot of them in national funds, in forex reserves, in corporate reserves, in private reserves. We have a quite consolidated market. We actually, of course, monetary policy is always some trade and choice, and we can go some different ways, but in my opinion, we definitely have everything in place to achieve these goals, to slow down inflation. And finally, it's still a huge opportunity for many investors, and also for institutional investors to make money on these bonds. Because, frankly speaking, another opportunity, if that will not happen, that will mean that for some reasons, even despite having such huge resources, we have to expect, I don't know, much weaker tenge in the future. I don't think so. I really believe that that's a good investment opportunity. And that's in general, it looks like that's also in general benefit of governments to keep inflation lower, to have a better predictability, to make, I don't know, to make a market mortgage more affordable to the people at the end of the day who will finally achieve all that stuff. And I also believe that we are very close to opportunity to attract more investors to our local currency-nominated government bond markets through some maybe exchange-traded products, which also could be listed as well as in Kazakhstan, but also outside of Kazakhstan. Maybe it's a good point for big asset managers to launch some ETF, ETPs, I don't know, ETNs to track our government and maybe corporate bonds market. And that could be a great opportunity to some, I don't know, carry trade with our currency and get some advantage of that inflation easing. And it's also great development in equities market because when AIFC was started in 2016, it was also a much different market, and both mainland and AIFC both did a great development over that period of time. We helped to different issuers to raise almost $2 billion in a recent couple of years, just in the local offerings. And first time maybe in the history we had more demand than supply from local investors on recent offerings. Because that was a formality for a long period of time that you have to offer on local market something. But now we have more demand than supply from the local market, which is also a great shift of that stuff. And frankly speaking, not so much markets can raise these billions of dollars of in equities offerings on their local markets from their local investors and get a huge portion of that from retail part. I also really believe that we have a really quite unique position. We are the same open capital account and investment grade country, and we are only country in a very big region. I think China don't have open capital accounts, and all the rest don't have investment grade credit rating. And that also can secure our position as a country and attract a lot of capital from all over around. Maybe not from high net, but from some growing upper middle class from all the region, and became like a much lower cost financial center for a lot of middle class and low risk foreign customers who just want to regionally diversify their savings. And we also see this demand, and I see how AIFC actually helping to absorb this demand. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Troll. Yeah, and as we started discussing more equity market, I think like, as Riyad, you mentioned that debt market is important and it's kind of the simplest way to come in as portfolio investors into the country. But I think that having more vibrant equity market is actually very important because that's where the long-term actually like capital is, and then the entrepreneurs can raise money. I know personally, you've been at least in discussion on previous few IPOs from Kazakhstan, right, on KMG, Air Astana, at least the last two ones. But now we want to shift more to the private stories, right, not the sovereign state-owned enterprises coming to the market. So anything for the private issuers who want to raise equity capital from the markets, lessons to be learned from the stories of our state-owned enterprise IPOs.
Honestly, Timur should do this, right? Because he's got a $11 billion company that he drove from the country. So I think he's the expert. But I mean, just from my perspective, the only word that I would say is just financial prudence and corporate governance. I mean, there's just two words that are consistent, that are most important for any company, and most important that if you're going to come to public markets, everyone wants to see transparency and a very, very strong corporate governance, and that is just so fundamental to the successful IPO, or even coming to the IPO and then post-IPO performance. And of course, you have to continue to produce the goods that you're building as a company. So I don't think I'm saying anything dramatic, but the continued development of corporate governance, and that's a kind of a cultural topic. When you go from a private company to a public company, and again, Timur has experienced this firsthand. There's a lot of scrutiny from investors that you never thought existed, because suddenly you're trading in NASDAQ or AIX or CASE. So I think this corporate governance topic is really the fundamental one that I would say.
Thank you, Riyad. Mr. Kablawi, you wanted to add on this point?
Just that the investor relations function is a very, very important function within the private sector as companies go public and then engage with their investors. It's always a journey, and there's a lot of learning in it, and it's never the same journey for companies in different segments and in different markets, and everybody goes on that journey. But the engagement with the investor community is extremely important. I can't tell you how much time our CFO and our head of investor relations spend with both buy-side analysts and sell-side analysts and speaking at conferences just to make sure that everybody understands the story, the narrative of the company. It's always an underestimated, underappreciated. As much as people spend on it, they can spend more.
Yes, please, Mr. Governor.
Actually, I have a sort of question for you.
Yes.
We've been contemplating. We've been talking about the need to raise financing to fuel our growth, to make our corporate landscape more transparent and things like that. And of course, IPOs are the way to do that. We do a lot of public IPOs, but I think again, unless we start diving into more private IPOs, the market is not gonna fly. Riyad said a lot of the very right things: corporate governance and transparency, investor business case, and investment story, and things like that. But I think we need to think about mid-sized companies' IPOs, and we need to show them the money. Generally, in developing economies, there is no incentive to be more transparent. There's no incentive to be, go through the audits of the Big Four and then have, ecological ESG and everything that we attach as regulators or exchanges when it comes to becoming public. So I guess we need to internally sit down and see what is the incentive for I don't know, a TO or something, Sherik, Timur, Nurlan, who owns, I don't know, a brick producing plant in Atyrau Oblast, for example. What is the incentive for him to go public? I think we need to find the incentives and then maybe take them by the hand through this whole journey. I guess I guess I wanted to get your opinion on that.
Sure.
I'm sorry, Renat. And the other one, and also I think is very important, once we get into digital finance and tokenized ways of raising capital, because it's all about raising capital. So if we open those gates with much lesser, scrutiny as opposed to formal IPOs, what are your thoughts on that?
Sure,
I'm sorry,
sure.
Renat, because
Thank you,
it interests me. Because I know, and it interests me because I want to raise capital for investment, and we believe that interest rates will remain, well, higher than usual for some time, and therefore we need to find alternative ways to raise capital.
Sure. Well, thank you, Governor. And this wasn't directed and expected. So I come again from both sides, demand and supply, right? I think on the supply side, which means like our issuers. So again, state-owned enterprise paved the way. Now we need more private stories. And I think it kind of took time. We as an independent country is 30 years. Now we're going, in my mind, through the change of generation of business owners. So those people who started a lot of the businesses that are mid-sized now are going out of the business just for the natural aging. And not all of the children would want to stay in the business and keep it private because like mindset has shifted, right? And it's shifting. So some of them will be exiting, which means that the business has to bring in more equity investors and diversify the investor base. So I think that will be one of the causes. Second, of course, the growth of the fintech and startup ecosystem. Successful cases of Caspian, etc., I think motivated a lot of the young people to go and, you probably heard about all these great stories of the companies who are actually expanding their startups globally and having these growth stories. So I think they will be also another group of supply of issuers on the market. Second, on the demand side, right? So we talked about the local market, that maybe savings are growing and more local retail is getting interested. We still have to create a local institutional demand, asset managers. And we also see that shift in AFC. We have in the last 4 years given out 60-something plus asset management licenses, more than 100 funds. So we see that the asset management industry is growing here. But another, I think that big shift, unfortunately we'll not have time to discuss it, is that the one thing we talked about all the time is bridging the liquidity between Chinese market and Kazakhstan. And for previous 6-7 years, it was super difficult. We didn't really have executions, but now we do. We did the first sovereign issuing the dim sum bonds, and we actually had the first dual IPO with Hong Kong, which will ring the bell about today. So I think that shows that there will be pools of capital coming into the market from abroad, from another jurisdiction that were not part of this market before, and also Middle East with the ADX and other exchange CEOs present here with the Tabadul will try to bring in more liquidity. So liquidity, of course, is the key. And the technology is going to shift that very much with the tokenization. Yes, please, Mr. Sharlapayev, you want to tell about it?
You brushed on a very important topic, and I just want to make sure that everybody in the audience and whoever's listening to us understands this. I think this country, and with help of the regulators, the national bank, the government, is going to make some very, very serious steps to the liberalization of the digital assets. And I think this is fundamentally changes the kind of the profile of our investors. It changes the actual attitude towards it. Because look, to be honest, right? So if you think about bonds and stocks, right? This is like a baby boomer language, a little bit dated in some ways. The younger generation speaks in the asset tokenization terms. They speak in stable coins, etc. The reality is, with underlying real assets, like the digital assets and their correct regulation and liberalization can create a very strong inflow of retail and private capital into the real assets. And I think what for us is very fundamental that our regulators, our governments are fully aligned on the digital asset liberalization. And I want to congratulate again Governor Bekturov, right? AIFC, one of the platforms where we've just recently did a Bitcoin ETF, right? One of the first in this part of the world. Our stable coins are probably not far out as well. I think we're gonna be launching within a month or two a new stable coin. So our job as a jurisdiction is to create the right environment, to create this digital asset and fiat assets or fiat environment, the right bridges, right, that operate both responsibly and also helpful to the investors community and the people who are trying to raise capital. I think this is something that we will continue to put a lot of effort in, and I again want to congratulate our regulators and AIFC for being at the forefront of that digital asset liberalization.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you. And I want to ask Mr. Suleimanov also to talk about digital assets a little bit. I think for the audience, for the market, it's important when the more conventional regulator talks about tokenization and the future of tokenization in the country.
Well, as Mr. Sharlapayev has mentioned, we're fully aligned. Of course, we're a traditional regulator, but we do understand that there is no way to turn this tide back. Technologically and from a regulatory standpoint, we just need to be on top of that. That is not to say that we need to go with it, because there's a lot of murky waters underneath. But you need to be able to separate the good and the bad. So basically, with the right regulation, which is not arbitrary to the traditional IPOs and bonds and things like that, we can do that. But we need to make it much easier, and that's why, as this tricky question. So the IPOs and tokenization. If you have a subsurface use right, for example, your LLP won that, and you want to go public, or you want to tokenize that right and raise capital that way. What are the avenues? What are the pros and cons of going both ways? This is something that we need to answer in a very short span of time. So, but we are fully aligned, and I think the AIFC's example is a great one. It's a big regulatory sandbox where a lot of ideas are being tested, and that helps us as traditional regulators to be more forward-looking and braver. So, yeah, I don't think we have any obstacles. We'll do it.
Thank you, Governor. And again, I think that's important for the market to hear that that we are aligned in terms of the digital assets and tokenization. Just last question, maybe not before anyone wants to other comments, Mr. Kablawi. Like, I think that the tokenization and creating of these crypto assets, I wouldn't say puts out traditional institutions that ensure trust on the market by checking, cross-checking, and etc. But this is decentralized finance, right? So a lot of the assurances are built into the instruments itself, right? That's a point. So that makes the infrastructure. How does that gonna affect the businesses of the institutions like yourself, who are actually on the post-trade side of the market? Just like out of curiosity, I think that you should be able to reinvent yourself, right?
Well, so I think it's less about reinventing and more about enabling. So I think of it as an opportunity to, on the one hand, solve issues in the traditional market. As I said earlier, we have been pushing from T+3 to T+2 to T+1 in the US, and taking out the noise, which is in failed settlements effectively. Data is slower to organize and derive insights from. For example, you mentioned earlier, $56 trillion in assets under custody and administration. We have a big data engine that aggregates and anonymizes the 56 trillion and then draws insights and conclusions. But it's only available next day. So for us, it's about enabling, and it's not just post-trade, it's pre-trade, trade, and post-trade, enabling that world in a parallel digital tokenized fashion, and then making sure that this is really important, bridging between traditional finance and digital assets, because there's a whole world, $200 trillion of assets that exist in traditional finance that can be tokenized, right, and can be made available for instantaneous settlement and the data that comes off of it. And so we see ourselves as an enabler of the interoperability of all of those islands that are currently being established to test out whether it's stable coins, tokenized traditional assets, or digitally native assets. There needs to be a consolidator or an interoperator of all of these things, and we're playing a role in making that happen.
I see. Thank you. We're running out of time, so maybe if any one of the speakers wants to make last comments on any of the topics we discussed, debt, equity, or digital assets. If not, the guests, we have now ring the bell ceremony, so please stay in the room. We'll start right away after the panel session. Now I would like to ask the speakers in the middle so we can take the group photo. Thank you for your participation.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, we are delighted to start the listing ceremony of GSIN International Resources at Astana International Exchange. Let me invite on stage Mr. Kanat Bozumbayev, Deputy Prime Minister of the Republic of Kazakhstan.
Good morning, dear ladies and gentlemen, investors and friends. Thanks Astana International Exchange Secretariat as an organizer for the event and great audience for their presence and attention. The purpose of today's event is a celebration of the successful dual listing on Hong Kong Stock Exchange as well as on Astana International Exchange of Hong Kong-based enterprises, GSIN International Resources Investment Limited, being a parent company of Kazakhstan, world's largest open-pit tungsten mining company, Jitsu Wolfram. When I was acting as a governor of Almaty region, and we provided full support to investment project, observing the ongoing construction progress of the processing plant and its infrastructure, and helping the company to positively overcome challenge to make sure the project continue to grow efficiency. The government of Kazakhstan needs to be confident that the world's first largest open pit tungsten mine in the right hand and being developed holistically and ecologically, creating a great environmental for the regional economy and community with the focus on deep processing of tungsten production. I would like to sincerely thank for the foreign investors such as Jiangxi Copper, CRRC, Evertrillion, as well as companies, Kazakhstani management for their great efforts, investors, reliability, and high competency in building up such a promising investment project in Kazakhstan. We hope the foreign investors and companies management will be able to act socially responsible and committed to sustainable development with ongoing ESG efforts. The Bogoti investment project is a great example of how the Kazakhstan-Chinese cooperation can be achieved efficiently and beneficially for both countries. The government of Kazakhstan is always working hard to ensure that the reliable and decent foreign investors are protected and supported accordingly by the state. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next, Mr. Yersain Nagaspayev, the Minister of Industry and Construction of the Republic of Kazakhstan, is invited on stage with welcome remarks.
Dear participants of the ceremony, I would like to congratulate Jackson International Resources Investment Limited on the successful completion of its IPO and dual listing of the Hong Kong Stock Exchange and the Astana International Exchange. Today's ceremony is not only about the company's entry into public trading. It marks a new stage in the development of our investment ecosystem, opens the way for international capital, and strengthens Kazakhstan's role as a regional financial hub. The Astana International Financial Center plays a key role in this process, ensuring investor confidence and acting as an important driver of capital attraction into Kazakhstan. President of the Republic of Kazakhstan, Kassym-Jomart Tokayev, and the President of the People's Republic of China, Xi Jinping, attach great importance to the expansion of the strategic partnership between our two countries. Within the framework of industry cooperation between Kazakhstan and the People's Republic of China, 270 joint projects are being implemented with a total value of approximately $75 billion, which are expected to create around 92,000 jobs. Among them are the Fujian Hengwang Investment Steel Plant, the coal chemical complex of China Energy International Group, and a multi-brand automobile manufacturing plant producing passenger cars under the Chery, Chang'an Haval, and Tang brands. Kazakhstan is ready to cooperate in the fields of exploration and development of mineral deposits, as well as in the metallurgical and chemical industries. These sectors are important for global supply chains, from the batteries and electronics to renewable energy. We offer our partners long-term cooperation based on the principles of trust, sustainability, and mutual benefit. I am confident that the success of Jiangxin International will serve as an example for foreign companies that will view IPOs as an effective instrument for development and entry into new markets. Allow me once more extend my congratulations to the management of the AIFC and team of Jiangxin, and to wish them continued prosperity and success. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite Ms. Asel Mukajanova, the CEO of Astana International Exchange, to deliver the welcome remarks.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, today it is a very important day for us, a historic milestone. Jackson International Resources Company, this is an issuer at our platform at the AIX, and it's great pleasure to welcome them as our listed company. Jackson will be listed both in AIX and in Hong Kong Exchange, and this is the first dual listing, the first of a Chinese company. And for the stocks in AIX, it's an official listing.
I am pleased. I have seen Mr. Bozumbayev, whom I studied at the university, and it made me confused a bit. I am really sorry. That was a surprise for me, and I apologize for that. And dear ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to welcome you to this tremendous occasion. Jiaxin company is one of the most expected IPO on AIX, and we truly believe that that will be a good start for many companies to come and join and do IPOs on AIX. And this transaction could not have been made without the commitment and dedication of the team of joint book runners, lead managers, lawyers, and auditors. And we believe that you did a great job. And I'd like to welcome Mr. Lu Lichang to our trading hall, and Mr. Wang Zhongwei for making this transaction happen. And that was the really great transaction, and I need to extend my sincere appreciation to Mr. Barry Chan, our longtime good friend. And Barry, you might not know that, but we regard you as a true ambassador of AFC and AIX in China and beyond. So that's a good start, and we believe that this will continue, and we will be welcoming more and more names to our market, and we'll see good transactions going forward. Thank you very much.
Alkış bildirimiz. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, now Mr. Liu Lichang, chairman of the Jiaxin International Resources Investment Limited, is invited to the stage to address the audience.
尊敬的卡拉特、博祖姆巴耶夫副总理阁下，尊敬的工业和建设部部长叶尔塞因纳加斯帕耶夫先生，尊敬的各位领导、各位来宾，大家上午好。今天我们共同见证嘉兴国际与香港联交所与哈萨克斯坦阿斯塔纳国际交易所同步上市的历史时刻，作为全球首家在
Dear ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's a big honor to be here at this ceremony today. It's a historic milestone, a dual listing of the Jiaxin at AIX and Hong Kong Stock Exchange. I would like to sincerely thank Government of Kazakhstan, Hong Kong Stock Exchange, AIX, our stakeholders, our partners, our clients. We appreciate our cooperation and all your support. Jiaxin International Company is actively working in Kazakhstan. We pay specific attention to the development and exploration of the tungsten reserve, and at the end of the year, our enterprise the biggest open pit tungsten site. It is a big milestone for Kazakhstani and Chinese cooperation. In November 2024, we were appreciated by the status of the biggest and the best investor, and the Prime Minister was actually giving us this status, and this was a great achievement in our cooperation. This dual listing attracted a lot of attention. The volume of our transaction had more demand rather than supply. It is more than 35 billion USD. And of course, this is a demonstration of our certainty and the trust from the international investors in the high-quality Kazakhstani assets. It's a positive signal, and it's very promising. We believe that this success will bring more companies to go for listing, dual listing as well, in Hong Kong Stock Exchange and AIX. This will be a new impulse for local economy. For us, this event and the dual listing is a new starting point to speed up our construction with the speeding up of the second phase of the tungsten development and its deeper processing with wolfram production. We will be ensuring high level of governance, who will be ensuring compliance in both companies, encouraging investors for higher achievements, and who will be respecting all ESG principles. And finally, I would like to thank all of you for your participation. I wish you the best of luck.
Of the Jiangxi Copper Company Limited, one of the major shareholders of Jiaxin International, is invited to the floor for the welcome remarks.
Dear Mr. Bozumbayev, Your Excellencies, dear guests, dear ladies and gentlemen, today we are witnessing a very important moment, successful listing of Jiaxin International at Astana International Exchange. On behalf of Jiangxi Copper, I would like to share my warmest greetings and congratulations for the listing, for going public. I would like to welcome representative of Kazakhstani government, all our friends and our partners. I would like to thank our friends and our partners from different sectors who were sharing their support and encouraging us for the wolfram bucketing reserve is the biggest project in Kazakhstan, supported by our company. And of course, thanks to joint support, the project team with highest quality standard and efficiency, we were able to promote the construction of the Bogotin reserve. After 4 years of major efforts, the modern mining complex is now located in the mountains of Bogot. And it is another bright demonstration of cooperation between People's Republic of China and Kazakhstan. This is an important milestone, not only in the development of our company, but also a big impulse for the development of industry in Kazakhstan. Cooperation within the joint construction of the Belt and Road Initiative and under the leadership of Kazakhstan and Central Asia spirit, cooperation between China and Kazakhstan is in its golden age. We believe that Jiaxin International will adhere to the principle of joint discussions, joint construction, mutual beneficial for both countries as a new impulse for quicker growth and becoming leader at the international wolfram market. And of course, we would like in this very important day to wish everybody successful listings, fruitful prosperity, good relationship between our countries within Belt and Road Initiative. Thank you very much and the best of luck.
This dual listing is China International Capital Corporation. Please welcome Ms. Liang Dongqing, Managing Director of CICC, to the stage to address the audience.
Your Excellency Deputy Prime Minister Bekturov, Your Excellency Minister Nazarbayev, Governor Ms. Bekturov, Ms. Mukhajanova, Chairman Liu, Mr. Yu, distinguished guests, It's my honor to represent CICC as the sole sponsor of Jiaxin International Resources to congratulate the company's dual listing on Hong Kong and Astana International Exchange. This milestone marks 3 global firsts: the first dual listing on Hong Kong and Astana market, the first Central Asia RMB-denominated stock, the first listed Hong Kong tungsten mining company. Through the IPO, Jiaxin successfully raised $170 million, but more important, its stock price surged 170% on its first trading day, reflecting strong market confidence. Following 2025 Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit, Jiaxin's listing sets a new benchmark for cross-border financial integration and collaboration and the Belt Road Initiative, and set a strong showcase for attract more dual listing and attract more capital into the region. CICC was privileged to lead this pioneering project, navigating complex dual market regulation to ensure smooth execution. We sincerely thank Jiaxin and Jiangxi Copper for your trust and deeply appreciate AIX and the regulators for your unwavering support. Looking ahead, CICC is dedicated to bridge capital markets between China and Kazakhstan, leveraging our global network. We wish Jiaxin every success in becoming a global tungsten leader, and we are confident the cooperation between two countries through AIFC and AIX will deepen further. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, according to our tradition, let us present the tombstones to our new issuer and the book runners. I invite to the stage Ms. Asel Mukazhanova and Mr. Liu Lichang, Chairman of Jiaxin International, for presentation of tombstones. Thank you very much. Ms. Liang Dongqing, Managing Director of CICC, is invited to the stage. Ms. Laura Dysenova, Investment Banking Department Director, Skybridge Invest, the local lead manager of the listing, is invited to the floor. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now approaching the culmination of today's ceremony, the countdown and the pressing of the button to mark the start of trading of Jiaxin International Resources ordinary shares on AIX. Mr. Kanat Bozumbayev, Mr. Liu Lichang, Mr. Yersain Nagaspayev, and Ms. Asel Mukazhanova are invited to the stage for the symbolic launch of trading. Congratulations. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this marked the conclusion of today's listing ceremony. Thank you for all joining us and celebrating this milestone together. Jiaxin International Resources Chairman Mr. Liu Lichang is asked to proceed to the main hall to sign the AIFC Book of Honorable Guests after the group photo with his team.